Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge and I'm your host. I am the author of 12 books, a CEO of 12 years, the founder of a startup set on data privacy, most importantly an elite performance coach of over 19 years, having worked with athletes throughout Europe, the United States to Australia. Most excitingly, I am the world's leading scientist on coach and athlete performance, specifically behind how to develop a top 10 tennis ranking. My work includes everything from mitigating injuries to conditioning behaviors that set a player up long-term for the long game towards a top 10 tennis ranking. I'm behind theories from the optimal performance theory, optimal behavior for optimal performance, the barrier breaker, the rule of transference to the golden rule. As has become custom, each episode we dive into the latest rankings and results on the WTA and ATP tours and deliver new data implications as shared in my latest release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, with over 80 episodes to date. Today's insights and key topic plays its own role, like so many other episodes, in developing the player, parent to coach for that road ahead towards a top 10 tennis ranking. So, as always, buckle in and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today. Look, if you've been with us for some time now, you know what we're all about, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you're new, if this is one of your first episodes you're tuning into, thank you so much. But as always, I really would encourage you to track back to some of our early episodes. Let's say around episodes 50 through to 60, because believe it or not, today's episode marks number 80, and oh my goodness, how far we've come. If you've been with us from the very beginning, you'd remember or recall that we really were pumping our episodes out quite frequently very early on, twice per week, probably for the first 6 to 7 months. And what happened, let's say, after the Australian Open, where we even amped it up even more, we've taken, a change of pace. Our episodes really have been expanded, so that you'll notice from the very beginning to how far we've come to now that they are almost double in length. And I've had a lot of fun with that. And as always, I really would love your feedback there, because it takes, a little bit more time to dig deeper into those rankings, deliver those insights, and also the results and what's happening with those tournaments, etc. Over that, given week. It's not that I wasn't having fun. I really was delivering those insights from those publications. And there's obviously 11 specific non-fiction text to choose from. That other one that makes up 12 is my fictional release. So that's a very different topic. But where I'm getting at is that since my latest release was published 3 months ago now, oh my goodness, has time flown? It really has opened up that space to share, I think, those additional implications almost in real time, or as close as we're going to get. And essentially, there's definitely going to be room further on to share, I think, those key sections from those publications, because we're around halfway through the Secrets to Optimal Coaching Success. So each and every episode, I'm still going to encourage all of you to get your hands on those earlier texts, as well as the Secrets to Optimal Performance Success, then to track your way through towards then my latest release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking. And I have something exciting in store for all of you today. Obviously, if you're listening to this in a few weeks' time, it'll already be available or ready to view. But what's been, I think, under wraps over the past couple of weeks is that AMA International is going through, let's say, somewhat of an overhaul to really provide more. And by more, it's really elaborating on the long game, the pathway that you've heard me touch on, the 7 keys, the 8th key, and to just share additional insights, resources, a better, I think, a point of view to allow each and every one of you to understand really what they're about, whether you have been listening to Beyond Top 10 Tennis or not, to encourage you either way. But something new that I have developed and been working on is just a little thing called, it's called POI. So your point of inception. Now, your point of inception is incredibly important because it will allow you to really understand where you should start. So specifically when we're looking at the 8 keys, but also these 11 specific books that really harness what you need to know to integrate into your game to develop and achieve that top 10 tennis ranking. So what's going to be available in the coming weeks, so not right now, but in the coming weeks, essentially is those additional snippets to review and to say, okay, I'm at the very beginning of my journey. I'm still at a club academy level, which means I really need to get my hands on the initial text and work my way through 1 all the way to 11 and really monitor that 10-year pathway and that additional 10 years of play. But if you are already on the ITF circuit, if you are already, you've got a ranking, let's say, inside the top 300 in the world, then even though I'm going to encourage you to read those earlier texts to really set you up to head towards that top 10 tennis ranking, your point of inception is going to differ slightly, and you have a little bit of flexibility there in contrast to someone at an earlier stage of their game. And the same applies to a player inside the top 20 towards the top 10, where their focus is, let's say, that dual capacity on whether it's that top 10 tennis ranking or maintaining it, but also to either achieve that maiden Grand Slam or look to achieve replicated success. So again, if you're familiar with our previous episode, you've heard me mention these terms previously and you understand what they're all about. So what's going to become available is where to start. And obviously for, I guess, that really niche group, and remember that the 8% rule that we've touched on, we're going to look at other texts that may be more important now, but still the earlier texts really do have an incredibly high relevance here and level of applicability. But that's where the 7 keys to optimize your life comes in, because it essentially amplifies your performance and you begin to learn those 7 subsets and you get to cross them off in a manner of speaking, whilst then the 8th key and integrating that into your game and looking at those varying intricacies. But the What Is Your Game Missing series is incredibly important in equal mirrors, because it really showcases the best players in the world, top 50, top 20, top 10, top 5, Grand Slam champions, current and previous over the last, let's say, 10 years, and what it really takes. So it's really important, and it's always, I think, a timely reminder to share that all of this is backed by data. We're the only lab, if you like, worldwide that has this available, and that's something a little bit of a twist there, because even though all of this work, this data, this number crunching has been developed by myself personally through, I guess, that rigorous scientific background, and also remember that extensive coaching background, the highest coaching qualification available globally, along with masters and then a doctorate in this field. So I'm in a very fortunate position, but there's a lot of hard work that has happened along the way, so much so that I wanted to share it. And that's obviously where those 11 nonfiction texts come from, to share how it really is attainable. So we've previously touched on the world first, landmark findings, all of the, I think, the buzz, the excitement around it, but it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's what's really important to, I think, ascertain, but in a really good way. We all know that. We really do. But I think some of the important points to touch on today, when we're going to dive into ranking shortly, we can look at the likes of Danielle Collins and her progressions, and how we've noted that she definitely is a top 20 player, and she's almost now, the rankings beginning to align. Sinner has been tracked for the last 3 years to get to this level, and why it's not surprising that he has overtaken Alcaraz, because one of the fun facts here is that Alcaraz got to number 2, the number 1 in the world, very quickly. He wasn't on, let's say, a steady progression, almost rapid fire, and Badosa was very similar when she got inside the top 5 in the world a few seasons ago. And the consequence of being a rapid fire result, even though these two players are very different in, let's say, their accomplishments, from Grand Slams to that top 10 ranking and that longevity there, it's really about, it doesn't have to be that quick, because it is, when it is steady, what happens in Sinner's case is that the good will come. You just need to keep at it and at it and at it. But a consequence, unfortunately, of that rapid fire progress is that you can equally, let's say, lose your grasp or your grip on those 7 keys and that 8th key. But if you take a little bit more time, in Sinner's case, you have the capacity to really tighten your game, and it's really showing now. But our data really underscores this, and has been monitoring this performance, and our predictive analytics flagged Sinner to achieve, I guess, or reach such heights, which is really exciting. The same actually applies for Swiatek. Collins hasn't been tracked as closely because of those fluctuating results. However, the last, let's say, 2-3 seasons, she's really come into her own again. And ironically, the last 2 to 3 years, our data has taken a little bit of a different turn to focus on those 7 keys and the 8th key to really compile what you essentially need, Pandora's box, if you like, to achieve that top 10 tennis ranking. So in future works coming, we will address, let's say, that gap that we really had to leave that 2 to 3 seasons to be able to track back and then progress forwards, because we essentially, or I had essentially tracked all of the data up until that point of time, and which means I needed another 1, 2, 3 seasons to unravel to be able to share with each and every one of you what the data then says, because I'm a very big believer in looking at the data when we really have the numbers on our side in the hundreds, if not thousands, in contrast to the 10s to 20s to just say that 50 to 100. And our analytics now are up to over 150,000. That's how staggering this is. But I won't ramble on about that, because we have touched on that in previous episodes, but I really want to share that if you are unsure about the long game, the pathway, or even replicated success, to your point of exception, so where you should start, AIMA International is having a bit of an overhaul, so it will be shortly available. All right, so that was a bit of an extensive, I think, introduction there today, but it is, we've come a long way to 80, believe it or not. And even though we could be ahead and we could be in the 3 digits by now, I made that choice to just have a bit of a change of pace after the Australian Open to really, I think, dig deeper and share those insights, but also aligning with predominantly those rankings that are updated most weeks. And also, I think when the Grand Slams hit once again with Roland Garros, I guess, next in line, we most likely will have another change of pace. All right, so we want to start, as always, with the WTA Tour. We're going to go through the rankings and then the results, followed by the ATP Tour and the respective ranking and results. Okay, so let's head right into the rankings. This week, we're going to have a look at the top 100, even though previous weeks sometimes we'll have a look at the top 200 and who's tracking to have that breakthrough into the top 100, and or who or the group or cohort of players that have reached those performance plateaus with very similar, I think, analytics from, let's say, 150 to 130 in the world ish, when we're looking at players 90 to, let's say, 70 in the world, and players who are stuck at a certain level of play. Though this week, when we're looking at the top 100, we know, given that Miami has unfolded and it was over the space, I think, of roughly 10 to 12 days, the rankings were not updated last week, which means it was not shared in last week's episode, but we do have some changes now that we can go over. Gracheva is top 100. She has actually regressed 17 places. However, she's still inside, I guess, these key ranking ranges. Bektas is at 95. She's broken into the top 100, moving up 9 places. Timofeeva is holding her own. She's 93 up. She last ranking, she was around 100. So that's actually a very good progression. And noticing here, she's only 20 years of age. So let's say within or towards the end of this season, we're going to see Timofeeva potentially crack into the top 50, if not top 60. But we'll keep an eye on that because she's had some promising performances already this season. And what I think that the promising, I say, I guess, in brackets, because certain names are more, I think, familiar than others when we're looking at how they've been tracking over the last few months or this season. Nonetheless, and Timofeeva has been up there, so this isn't surprising that she has been tracking forwards. Whitmay is back 2 points, but it's great to still see her around. 34 years of age, she's one of the other parents on tour, and so she's sitting at 90 in the world. Torsen is up to 87. Another or a few more movers in this ranking ranges. Osorio is up 5, and 22-year-old from Colombia. Kayla Day from the States, 24, is up to 84 in the world. Trevisan has regressed 20 places back to 81 in the world. Other notable ones would have is Gulbik, the 31 years of age, the Swiss, 79. She's back 8 ranking points. Pera's up 3 at 78. We have quite a number of movers inside this ranking range this week, especially when we're looking at, let's say, 70 towards 100. Doden is up 7, so she's 77 now in the world. Then we have Minnen, 26 years of age, from Belgium, 71 in the world. So that's actually some very big movers and some very big jumps. So we've got progressions here and regressions inside this, let's say, key ranking range. So who's going to maintain their hold inside the top 100, who's tracking closer towards let's say the top 50 mark, who's hovering, so who's comfortable. So even though I've mentioned, let's say, a number of players now, we still have others that have been holding their own or have just moved 1 or 2 places forwards and or backwards. Okay, so inside the top 70 now, big mover is Podoroska, 11 places, 67 now in the world. Townsend has progressed slightly. She's at 68. Yafan Wang is back 5 places, 69 in the world. Then we've got Lynette has regressed 8 places, 63. This is a little bit surprising because Lynette has been on the radar so far this season. Benchik has regressed just 3 points to 62 in the world. And we know Benchik is former top 10 player prior to being sidelined or taking time away from the tour. We also know Benchik is, I guess, the reigning gold medalist, so it's not looking like she will be defending her podium finish at Paris, which is really only months away now, which is a little bit of a shame. However, I'm sure we will see Benchik back in action when she, I guess, comes back on tour. Kvitova has had a very big regression, so she's sitting at 60 now, back 37 places. Schneider's up 4, 58. Schneider has been on the radar. She has been improving so far this season. This is, I think, one of, if not her, highest ranking to date, only 19 years of age. Kennan's sitting at 57 in the world. Cocchioretto is back 5 places to 56, but I'm sure she's going to pick that up because Cocchioretto has also slightly been on the radar this season, tracking with some positive, let's say, progressions. Rus also on the radar, making some positive progressions. 33 years of age, Dutch, and I'm a little bit biased here because of my background, which I really don't frequently share, but she has been slightly progressing here, which is very good to see. Putintseva, 52 now in the world, has progressed 16 places. We will get to the results from Miami, which really underscores her progression. And I think if she stays on track, we are going to see her break inside the top 40 inside, let's say, the next 2 to 3 months. But this is not surprising because despite being 29 years of age, she has been tracking progressively this season, and I think Miami really was a standout performance on her behalf. All right, inside the top 50, here we come. Let's say bigger movers. We're seeing 1s and 2 progressions and slight regressions. Stevens is back inside the top 40 there. Serenko's at 39. Mira Andreeva's holding her own at 38, only 16 years of age, but she really has been steady here. We've seen her around this ranking range so far the last, I want to say 2 months, and it's really just been holding her own, which is good to see. Vekic has a slight regression. Potapova's back 6 places to 35. Fernandez is up 1 to 34. Kalanin is up 3 to 33. Yastremska's, she's at 1 progression. She's at 32. She's really been around, I'd say 32, 33 since the Australian Open. Noskova says it does not say she's had a progression and or regression. However, it's a little bit incorrect because Noskova was inside the top 30 I think she was around 26, 27. So it's just a little slight regression there. Only 19 years of age, but let's remember her peak performance at the Australian Open. Mertens is down 2, so she's at 30 now. So Stayer's back 5, she's at 29. So Stayer, I think we all know with her results so far, even this season and last, she has the potential to be inside the top 20 quite comfortably, because Strzok it's saying it's a regression. She's at 27, but she was close to where Yastremska was holding. So I would probably say, because she will regress back to around 30, but she will then again progress around, let's say, around 25 potentially if she keeps tracking. Azarenka's up 6 places to 26. This is really good to see. I'd love to see Azarenka back inside the top 20, if not top 15. We're just looking at, I think, about those wins against the top 10 players more frequently, top 15 players more frequently. We know she's got it in her, especially with her results at Miami, which has been great to see. So I really think it's just a matter of time. Krejcikova, she's back 4 places at 25. Definitely has the potential to be back inside the top 10. It's more so a matter of Krejcikova finding, I think, her consistency once again. So she's got that baseline, but that baseline has regressed. So we're looking at those new peak performance levels to be integrated back into, let's say, her standardized level of play, which we have seen somewhat fluctuating compared to really that tight-knit game that would not allow her opponent to hit past her. She was rock solid. Whereas these days, I'm going to say her opponents can get past her more readily, and she really needs to, I want to say, integrate more of the keys into her game, because that is what is primarily of concern and has been fluctuating. So Krejcikova has the capacity to be back inside the top 10. And look, Roland Garros, we know she won that a couple of seasons ago. She has that capacity, but how she's playing this season, that is not on her side. She definitely still has it in her, though, to find that groove once again. Kalinskaya, she did withdraw, I think, from Miami it was, but she's actually up a place to 24 in the world. So this is definitely a performance high at only 25 years of age. Garcia's up 4 places to 23 in the world. And here we go, Collins, touching on earlier, is 22 in the world, up 31 places. And the last 2 to 3 episodes, I'm sure you've heard me touch on Collins, that she definitely deserves to be ranked inside the top 20, and here we come. Same applies for Pavlyuchenkova, who's up 1 place to 21. Both of those players are exceptional in their own right and deserve, with their current level of play, their rate of progress, to be positioned inside the top 15. Both players have been finalists at the Grand Slam level previously. They have been holding their own. Look, both 30 and 32 years of age respectively, they definitely have it in them. Irrespective of younger players coming up, late teens, earlier 20s, both of these players have had an incredibly successful career and been able to hold their own. Likewise with Azarenka, of course we know Azarenka has a number of slams under her belt. Krejcikova, even though she's 28 years of age, we also know she's got a Grand Slam under her belt, but they all have the capacity. What they are missing, and I really need to underscore this, they have that capacity. What they're missing is some of the keys. They do not have all 8 keys solidified in their game. It is that clear. They have had the capacity previously. They have executed that previously throughout their level of play, and we're seeing, I think, those key technical parameters integrated into the game, but the rate of application, the consistency of application is not there. Anyway, there we will see, I think, French Open time, what's to come, but also the next 2 to 3 months, how these players are tracking. Navarro is comfortably sitting at 20. Not much changes here. Svitolina still at 17, Keys at 18, and Kudermetova at 19. Samsonova's back one at 16. Alexandrova's up one at 15. Alexandrova has definitely hit a peak performance with her performance at Miami, and that was definitely underscoring here one of her most impressive results to date, especially with that win over Swiatek. Paolini's happy at 14, Haddad Mayer 13, Mikova 12, and Kasatkina 11 to round out those just sitting outside the top 10. Kasatkina, however, is on the brink of cracking into the top 10. However, there is a number of ranking points separating Kasatkina from Ostapenko. Nonetheless, we've got inside there in the top 10 Vondrasova, who's at 9 now, back one. And she has a number of points, I think, coming up to defend. But her level of play has not been, let's say, in line with other players inside the top 10. Same applies for Zheng. Regressed back to 8 now in the world, and it has been marked that she will regress outside the top 10. However, it's really important to note, despite these lackluster performances, so not living up to the expectations of a top 10 player, they do have those ranking points, and there's a big difference. So we're talking about not just 500, but we're looking at around 8 to 900 points separating these players from, say, Kasatkina. Ostapenko to Kasatkina, there's let's say a 300 roughly separating them. But when we're looking at 9, 8, 7 in the world, we're getting up a little bit higher. And that is why, if the gap was not, I think, as extensive, all two of those, Zheng and Vondrasova, would be outside the top 10. So they would succumb to that rule, that 2% rule, where they will regress. And so far this season, we have seen more players regress, but time will tell if they progress back inside, which ironically has been the case, because Sakkari only a few weeks ago regressed outside the top 10, then progressed back inside to become a barrier breaker, and now this week she's risen 2 places up to 7 in the world. Arguably, she definitely deserves to be placed at 6, because Jabeur is 6, holding her own there, very steady, but her results, her performances have not been in sync. If Jabeur did not have those points up her sleeve, she would probably be sitting closer to 20, around that range in the world with her performances. Because look at Collins, for example, to Pavlyuchenkova, to even Azarenka and their results. Jabeur has not been stringing those wins together. And I'm a big fan of Ons, so I would love to see her integrate more of those keys into her game. Because even though we're looking at the pathway to develop that top 10 tennis ranking, there's more to it. It's about how to maintain that ranking without regressing. And that's where the latest release comes in, and that rule of, let's say, the 8% to the 2%. How not to be susceptible to regress outside the top 10. And already this season, we have a number of top 10 players susceptible to regressing. Their performances are not living up to those expectations. That's where the 8th key comes in. The 7 keys get you to that top 10 tennis ranking. The 8th key keeps you there, amplifies your game. So irrespective of these ranking points, the 8th key is not integrated into these players' game. They are not holding onto the keys like they should be doing. The likes of, let's say, the top 5, Pegula, Rybakina, Gauff, Sabalenka, Swiatek, they have the keys. By all accounts, Pegula's results have not been as high as some of the others. That said, she did show up at Miami, and that was really good to see. But we're still looking at that performance being maintained. Give me more is really what I'm saying. That these players have been delivering. Swiatek, Sabalenka, even though it's a bit up and down at the moment, which is understandable when We've touched on the physical, mental and emotional, how all three components of a player's health comes into play, and they really need to be, I think, tight-knit and monitored and conditioned. And I'm not going to spend or touch too much on this, but it goes without saying, Sabalenka's, let's say, emotional, mental side, because of what's happened off court, would have taken quite a substantial hit, which is incredibly understandable for anyone who goes through something like that in any way, shape or form. Touch on early episodes that we've had around mental health, anxiety, depression, but everything, I think, in that space, and also my role as a chairperson previously in the not-for-profit space on mental health boards. And it's really important, I think, to address that here and now. But Swiatek really has been delivering despite falling short in Miami. She had an incredible run. Gauff is still managing to hold her own quite consistently, hasn't been going as deep. Rybakina really is, let's say, showcasing her capacity to be potentially 2-3 in the world, and I think that's only a matter of time. That said, Gauff is an extra almost 1,500 plus in front of Rybakina when we're looking at points, and Gauff and Sabalenka, we've got around 800 points separating the two, so that's not going to change anytime soon. However, when we're looking at performances to achieving replicated success, winning that maiden Grand Slam, we're looking at these markers, we're looking at what are the predictive analytics telling us, and right now is not so much as the analytics, we're looking at those key patterns of play. And Rybakina has those key patterns. Swiatek has those key patterns. Sabalenka to Gauff, when they're on, they have those key patterns. Pegula, it's really, she fluctuates. However, less so than Jabeur is really fluctuating at the moment. Those key patterns of play are not on. There's actually a regressive form to her technical parameters. Sakari has been tracking forward, which is really good to see. Zheng is again regressing. Vondrousova, we haven't seen her that much in action, so I'm not going to comment too much there. Ostapenko, she's been showing up, and that is why I think she's cracked into the top 10 and become a barrier breaker. But the same can be said for Kasatkina. Ironically, has played more events this season so far than Ostapenko, but it's again, those key technical parameters are not solidified in her game. And it's almost ironic to share this between number 11 in the world and 10, and then how severe that difference gets between 1, 2, 3, 4 in the world to those ranked 8, 9, 10 in the world. And it's quite substantial, because right now when we're looking at the 7 keys or the 8th key, it's really exclusive to the top 4, top 5, because we have actually an anomaly, in a manner of speaking, inside the top 10, where almost 50% of top 10 players can readily be displaced in their games, not so much as their ranking, but they are in line to be displaced by other players should those ranking points be accumulated. In contrast to, irrespective of points accumulation, etc., the other 50% are actually quite comfortable. Those key patterns of play are there. They are in line to win their maiden Grand Slam, if not replicated success. Predominantly, we're looking at, let's say, the top 4 who have all won Grand Slams. The top 2, obviously, more. Gauff, Rybakina are both in line to achieve replicated success. So to secure that second Grand Slam, potentially this season, I need to see more from Pegula to get her to the championships, to get her to that finalist position, if not to claim that maiden slam. Jabeur, give me more. We know she has it in her. We really do. But those key technical parameters, they're fluctuating a little bit too much. And then here we have at 7 in the world, Sakari. She just keeps amping it up the last, I want to say 4 to 5 weeks, where previously she really was lagging behind. Even though we've got Zhang as the Australian Open finalist, she hasn't been able to live up to those expectations, which is incredibly understandable, only 21 years of age. But Sakari, this could very well be her year if she can hold it together. All right, that is a wrap, I think, of the rankings. It's really interesting, I think, to dive into and also to look at the micro discrepancies between the top 10 players, the top 5 players, and let's say those shuffling in between, but also the irony, in a manner of speaking, of those points, that irrespective if a player has accumulated so many points, their performance can have a regressive influence on their game, which means that it's their ranking points keeping them inside the top 10, not their level of play. All right, over quickly to Miami. We've got the quarterfinals onwards to look at, and really I think solidifying what I've touched on. Rybakina over Sakari in the quarters, 3 sets. That was actually really solid from Sakari, but really great from Rybakina to get the win. 7-5, 6-7, 6-4. That was an exceptional match. Putintseva, who I've just touched on in the rankings and why she keeps tracking forwards, she fell in 3 to Azarenka. But look, 7-6, 1-6, 6-3. That's something to be incredibly proud of. And I'll say if Putintseva continues tracking forwards in this manner, we will see her crack into the top 40, potentially top 30, I think, midway through this season. On the other side of the quarterfinals, Pegula Alexandrova. We saw Alexandrova with, I think, that incredible win over Swiatek, and she backed that up with a win over Pegula. But I tell you what, 3 sets, it was not easy. 3-6, 6-4, 6-4. That was exceptional for Alexandrova to pull that through. Pegula, she is 5 in the world. I would have expected a little bit more, but that is a little bit contradictory as well, because Alexandrova, she got the win over Swiatek and now over Pegula. If she can continue tracking this way, she's more inclined to lean towards top 30 over top 40 if there's a continuation here. Collins and Garcia rounds things up, and Collins is literally on fire. 6-3, 6-2 over Garcia, who has been tracking forwards. And semi-finals, we know what happened. Collins got the win over Alexandrova, which is it's really exciting because Alexandrova toppled Swiatek, then Pegula, and here we come Collins, who I have been, let's say, shouting out in the best possible way the last couple of weeks, and with a clean win. Obviously Collins was not seeded. 6-3, 6-2. Rybakina got a very solid win over Azarenka, but look at this, 6-4, 6-love to Azarenka in the second set, 7-6. So I'll say that again, 6-4, love 6, 7-6. But it really was that second set, 6-love to Azarenka over Rybakina, and then that third set in a tiebreak, that was incredibly close, if not more siding towards Azarenka, but somehow Rybakina came away with that win. And we know what happened in the finals. It really was incredibly close, but look, Collins, Rybakina, 7-5, 6-3, an exceptional win for Collins, backing up from a few seasons ago when Collins made, I think, the Australian Open finals. But Rybakina, look, she does not relent easy, and if at all. So this was a really good win for Collins, and I think that rounds it out. A couple of other events are underway, I think, this week, but I really wanted to highlight Miami today. But look, we've got a couple of smaller ones. So we've got Mexico. Well, it's wrapped up now, but let's have a look at the semi-finals and then the finals, because I just want to look at the top 4, and then we can see if they've been tracking. And there's a reason why, because Podoroska has been progressing, and Cocchiaretto, and they both faced off in the semi-finals in Mexico, 6-7, 7-6, 6-2 to Podoroska. And then we've got Jones and Riera, 6-4, 6-3 to Jones in the other semi-final. And the final, we had Podoroska over Jones, 6-1, 6-2. That really shows, I think, the difference in performances here, but also why we've seen a ranking progression with Podoroska. So there was a method to the madness there. Another one here, we've got Turkey. So Turkey, we'll have a look again at the semi-finals and the finals because it wrapped up a couple of days ago. We've got Berge and Ushjima. I've tried my best. I apologize for the mispronunciation. 7-5, 6-2. Other side, we've got Walterd and Buzaz Manierio, 6-2, 6-3. Really tried. Buzaz Maniero was the 5th seed here. Berge, 4th seed. So we've got the 4th and 5th seed off against each other in the final, and it's the 5th seed with the win. So Buzaz and Maniero 6-2, 4-6, 6-2. Now this is really interesting. Great to see the 5th and 4th seed respectively making it to the finals, but both of these players, neither are on the radar, but Buzaz and Maniero got the title. So I'm going out on a limb here as to say this must be her first title this season. But let's see now, Buzaz Maniero on the radar, which was not expected, which is really good. So congratulations to her. Now another event, we've got 3 more to go. Currently underway, only started at the beginning of the week. So I'm going to quickly run through a couple of events in Spain, which are currently it's actively underway as we are recording. But a couple of plays we want to look at. We've got Masorova, 5th seed with a win over Ferrero. Bay, 3rd seed with she fell to Kowa in 3 sets. That was 5-7, 7-5, 6-3. And another match I'm going to go with is Doden fell to Lies, 6-4, 6-1. All of these are first round encounters. Babos over Basols Ribeira fell. So Basols Ribeira with the win there. Who else we got? We were at Freizem over Buzaz Maniero, 6-4, 6-3 to Buzaz Maniero. And this is what we want to see. Really, these plays, because it's not a 500 event, some names we may not be as familiar with. But we've got Minin is the number 1 seed, but Mildenovic got the win 6-3, 6-1, and Giacomo over Dard 1-6, 6-4, 6-3, and Parizes Diaz fell to Rus 6-2, 6-1. So really it's first round event, and we will revisit this event next week to have a look at those semi-finals to the finalists, because again it's only early days, but let's see, I guess, the players who are going to see it through towards, I guess, those last 2 to 3 days of the event. Another event that is underway, but let's say more keenly watched, it is a bigger event, a 500, is Charleston. And it's a little bit ironic here because Collins only just got the win on, I think it was Sunday, and now she's backing that up with another win over here in Charleston. But before we dig into the first round, let's have a look at the qualifying for some notable players. We've got Melika Martinez falling in the first round of qualifying to Fritova, but I'm mentioning this, it was in 3 sets because Melika Martinez is an exceptional doubles player, and we don't normally see her in the singles round. Sharma is an Aussie. She got a win over Annie. Let's see other players. Seville over Min, another Aussie, 6-1, 6-2. Watson, she got the win over Smith, 6-love, 6-4. Volynets over Sebov, 6-3, 6-2. That's going to round out, let's say, the first day of qualifying. Second day of qualifying, Sharma fell to Lee in 2. Seville got the win over Watson in 2 sets. Grachiva, a good win over Arconada, 2 and 4. Now, Volnetz over Lee, 2-6, 6-1, 6-2. Now, I'm really underscoring the amount of tennis Volnetz has been playing because she has come off a very long win over Rus. First round, I'm really happy she got the win after pushing through qualifying because 6-2, 6-7, 7-6, and I just read it was the longest women's match this season so far. I think it clocked in around 3 hours 43 minutes. What an exceptional result and first round, but Volnetz had to come through qualifying and already had those other wins under her belt. All right, first round, we've got a draw of 64 here, which means Charleston is heavy. It is jam-packed. We'll touch on a couple of events here. Cornet fell to Anisimova, 6-3, 6-2 to Anisimova. Seville over Korpach, 3 sets. Tomova over Sheriff, 3 sets. Lynette got the win over Martic. Wozniacki got a very good win over Kessler, 6-love, 6-1. Wozniacki has been tracking in the rankings. I think she's almost inside the 120. I think she's around 123-ish in the world. So it'll be very interesting if Wozniacki breaks into the top 100 in the coming weeks. All right. A round of 32 that is underway at the moment. And how about this? This match literally wrapped up whilst we've been on air. Pegula over Anisimova, 3-6, 6-4, 7-6. That's exceptional. Anisimova taking Pegula to a tiebreak, which was 7-3 in the third. That was neck and neck. Let's see Charleston if it is a good omen for Pegula. Everything's pointing in her direction. It'd be really great to see, I think, Pegula living up to number 5 in the world, but she does have competition. Sakari's in the same draw as well. 6-3, 6-3 over Tomova in the second round. And Collins, what a win over Badosa, 6-1, 6-4. But this is something really interesting that I was touching on earlier. We know Badosa has and or had the potential to be a top 10 player. She tracked incredibly quickly around the time COVID was at its peak a few seasons ago. So that was unfortunate that the crowds were not there to see. But as I touched on with Alcaraz, it was very rapid fire results. Alcaraz has been able to hold his own and securing that number 1 ranking and everything good and multiple Grand Slams to his name now. Badosa, however, tracked backwards, was not able to maintain that level of play. Granted, she has succumbed to injury, and that has derailed her for some time now. And I think it's something she's really trying to manage. But for Collins to get a win this substantial, that is electrifying in a really good way. And look, given that it's Collins' last season on tour, I have to be incredibly happy for her and that she keeps this run going. Sharma over Rodionova, 4-1. Lynette, a very good win over Yastremska. So recall early on I said I was surprised with Lynette slightly regressing because she does have the capacity and she has been showing up this season in these events. 6-love to Yastremska the first set, and then 6-4, 6-3 to Lynette. Dolhide over Day, 3 sets. Stevens over Fretch, 6-love, 6-2. That is solid. Kruger over Lee, 7-6, 6-3. Cocchiaretto over Bogdan, 2-6, 6-1, 7-6. And this underscores again why Cocchiaretto has been on the radar. Smaller events too, bigger events, she is showing up in these earlier rounds. Townsend with a good win over Kennan. Similar ranking ranges, I think it's around 40 and a 57-ish touched on. I don't have the rankings right in front of me at this stage, but there's around 10 ranking points separating these two. 6-3, 6-3. That's a very healthy scoreline for Townsend. Okay, that one wraps it up. Last one we're going to touch on, that is Zurich, so that's underway in Colombia at the moment. So let's quickly have a look at some of the plays very early on. Zavazka fell to Barra. We got Rakhimova over Mediol Arias. And then, these are ones that tongue twisters for me, so I really apologize with the pronunciation. Zarazura over Higuata Baraza. Love and love. It's a little bit brutal. However, very early on, one of the lower events, so very good to see how players are tracking. We've got Seidman's currently underway over Shumansevich. That one is live. Jones with a win over Monterrey. Riera over Ariengo, 6-love, 6-3. A couple of other, we've got Busca over U, 6-1, 7-5. Baptiste over Zidansek in 3 sets. Irani over Stara Bush Siva, 6-2, 7-6. And Sorebes Tormo over Timofeva, 1 and 3. That's a little bit surprising, but very good. Sorebes Tormo is the 3rd seed. That really wraps up, I think, at this stage, because it is an event that is underway. So we'll track back to that one next week. So that rounds up, or wraps up as well, the WTA rankings and their results. So I think we have taken a lot of time diving into the WTA Tour today. So we're going to quickly hop on over to the ATP Tour and dive straight into the rankings. And sitting at number 100 is Fognini. He's cracked back into the top 100. He's up 3 places. And we've got Moutet as well. He's up 8 places to 99. And so we're going to quickly go through these ones. Roberto Bautista Agut, he is up 7 points at 93 in the world. Van de Zandschulp, he's regressed 10 points. He's at 87. Martin Fuchsovich, he's up to 85. Just a 1 point progression. But there are a couple of plays that are noteworthy. Wawrinka is holding his own at 82. Rinky is an Aussie. He's at a ranking high, I think, now with 80 in the world. Very impressive. Purcell is down back 11 places, so he's at 79 now. But we've got a couple of newcomers here. Martinez is up 11 places, 77 now in the world. Nardi, Luca Nardi, remember Indian Wells, was it? 21 places, progressing to 75 in the world. This is really exciting for him, because it really underscores it was not just a one-off result, that he has been tracking. Arthur Kazuks, he is up to 74 in the world, which is incredibly impressive, because, dare I say, not that it's showing this week in the rankings, he was around 150 in the world at the beginning of the season. So he has been making really good traction, which is very impressive to see. Both Nardi and Kazuks are on the radar this season, which is very promising for both 20 and 21 years of age respectively. Other players we've got here, Michelson from the US, he's up 3 places to 70 in the world. Vukic, the Aussie, he's down to 67. Thiago, Seaboth Wilds at 66, he's up 10 points. Seaboth Wild has, let's say, subtly been on the radar, because again, he has been showing up like some of those players mentioned on the WTA Tour. We're now inside 60 in the world, sitting just outside of Senegro. He's regressed actually 8 points, so he's 61 now. But we've got at 59 Murray, he's up 3 points. Great to see. O'Donnell's up 8 points to 58. Other players, as we quickly track through, I'm looking for some very big jumps. Monfils, not a big jump, but he's up to 45. This is the one. 43 in the world now is Macaque. He is up 17 places. 3rd player on the radar. He's at 23 years of age. So we've got a 20, 21 and 23 all performing exceptionally well, especially the last couple of weeks. 24 years of age, we've got Marizan, up 19 places to 38 in the world. That's a very big jump, but all 4 of those players have been tracking and have had standout performances so far this season. Ogor Elisame, he's sitting at 36. There's no fluctuation there. But it's very important, I think, to remember that Felix is only 23 years of age. He has already been inside the top 10 and achieved so much at such a young age. It's very easy to forget that, again, he's only 23 years of age. Likewise is Analdi, same age, up 3 points, 35 in the world. He's also a noteworthy performer. Echeverry is sitting at 30. There's no changes there. Quarters up to at 27 in the world. Other noteworthy players, as we're tracking now, inside the top 20. Not too much of a fluctuation. It says Shelton's up to 16, but he's been sitting around 16 for some time now. Pulls back 1 to 15. Humbert's sitting the same. Well, it says he's at 1, but he's at 14. Now, Fritz, 13. He was inside the top 10 at the beginning of the year after the Australian Open. So Tsitsipas has regressed another place to 12. De Minaur has again slipped outside the top 10 at 11. There's a bit of a dance going on here because he was inside, then he was outside, then he was inside, then he's outside. I think this is the 3rd time now he's slipped outside the top 10. But it really goes to show, and that's this season, show how close these ranking points are. It's actually a lot closer players on the cusp here than in comparison to the WTA Tour. It's literally, we've got players being separated from 200 to 100 points, all inside, let's say, number 9 in the world through to 12, a little bit more when we're looking at 13. But barrier breaker for the season, here we come, Dimitrov. He's made it. So we've got Demore's already been a barrier breaker, and we've got Dimitrov, which is really great to see because he's been tracking so well this season. He already has a title to his name, even though he got runner-up, and we know the result of Miami. This is an exceptional performance because he got a number of really solid wins, which is really great to see. Rounding out the top 10 has predominantly stayed the same. Hercax is back 1, so he's at 10, but needed to make room for Dimitrov. Similar in points, they're only a little bit over 100 that separate them, and then Rudd is only roughly around less than 100 behind Dimitrov at 8. Rune around 150 here, so he's 7, and then Rublev's at 6, a bit more of a jump, so there's around 900-ish points separating the two. And then you've got Zverev. Now, all of this is incredibly achievable. So when you're looking at, let's say, that 50% of the top 10 on the ATP Tour, that's one very big win to, I think, get that very big jump in the rankings. Now, if we want to push a little bit more, look, Medvedev's, he's in the 7,000s, so you've got around 1,500 separating the two of them. Alcaraz, even more, and that's around another 15, and then Sinner. He has over, I think, he's progressed above Alcaraz now. As far as points are concerned, it's only minor. We're literally looking at less than, underscoring the less than here are 100 points, which means these two are going to have a dance for some time now, and it's really going to depend on Djokovic's results, especially in the coming weeks, if he adds to his tally or not. If Djokovic stays where he is points-wise, then the two of them, Sinner and Alcaraz, are going to creep up behind him. And dare I say, we may very well see Alcaraz and Sinner vying for 1 and 2, and Djokovic slipped to 3. And that will be the first time Djokovic has slipped to 3, in contrast to 1 for some time. And that will be incredibly interesting to watch, because I think when that happens, the next generation really has arrived, because what it's all about is who can dethrone Djokovic, not just from 1 or 2, but to have him regress slightly. And even though we know Medvedev is up there and he can get those wins against Djokovic, both Sinner and Alcaraz are more consistent, and they are a couple of years younger than Medvedev when we're looking at this. And it's going to be very interesting to see. Rune has not been living up to his ranking. I'm not going to be surprised if there is a regression, potentially outside the top 10. Rudd, let's see. I think Rudd's been tracking more positively this season in contrast. Rublev, on a similar front there. Zverev has been tracking on a positive note this season. But so it's a 50-50, similar to the WTA Tour. And it's going to be very, let's say insightful come Roland Garros, and the number of players here inside the top 10 who can deliver and those who fall short. There's a couple of, I'm going to say, clay court specialists inside the top 10, in contrast to more hard court. But it's going to be very interesting to see who can, I think, transition the easiest. It's definitely going to favour the likes of, say, a Rudd and a Rune, potentially a Zverev, and I'm going to say an Alcaraz. Djokovic and Sinner, they're so incredibly versatile either way. We haven't really seen Sinner excel at his current level on clay. He's really been delivering it so far on hard, especially when we're looking at the last 6 months that have predominantly been based on hard court surfaces. So that's going to be very interesting to watch. As far as I think the other top 10 players are concerned, it's really, I think, a matter of who's in line for that next Grand Slam, and Sinner definitely has his name on that Grand Slam for sure. And I mean, we know he has that slam to his name, but who's going to get to 2? Is Sinner going to get his second? Is Alcaraz going to get his third? Is Djokovic going to add to the tally? Is Medvedev going to get, I think he's up to his second. When we're looking at finalists and the ones that he's won, or potentially Zverev going to get his first. He came very close a couple of seasons ago when it was Thiem and himself in the final. But recall as well when it was Thiem and Zverev eyeing for the top 2 places when we thought the next gen really had arrived, but we had to wait a little bit longer because we have not seen a rivalry like Sinner and Alcaraz, I think, to match what was even, I think, a few years prior. Rune, let's see if he can throw himself into the mix, because again, he's actually about the same age as Alcaraz there. Sinner's a little bit ahead at 22. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. Okay, it is definitely time now to dive into the results. So now remember Miami, we got up to the round of 32. So we're going to touch on the round of 16 nice and quickly, but let's go over this. Alcaraz Mazzetti actually played quite well, 3-3 to Alcaraz. Dimitrov, very good win over Hurkacz in 3 sets. Zverev with a very good win over Kakanakov. Now remember, Kakanakov is 15 in the world, and that was a 6-1, 6-4. Dimonor fell to Marazan in 3 sets. But look at this, 6-4, love 6, 6-1. So Alex got that second set 6-love, but Marazan got the third set 6-1. Rudd, Jarry got the win over Rudd. A little bit surprising there. All credit to Jarry. But Rudd had been tracking. He had made his way back inside the top 10. So this is a little bit of a regressive performance, I'm going to say. Medvedev over Koper, 7-6, 6-love. Makak over Analdi. Very good result for both of these, let's say, newcomer players. 6-3, 6-3 to Makak. Sinner over O'Donnell, 4-3. Okay, quarterfinals, here we come. Dimitrov, what an exceptional win over Alcaraz, 6-2, 6-4. That was clean. Zverev over Marazan, 6-3, 7-5. Medvedev over Jarry, 6-2, 7-6. Sinner over Makak, 4-2. That was a really solid performance. All right, then we've gone through the quarterfinals. I think it's we've touched on the quarterfinals, but I think it's semi-finals, because I am having a giggle, and we are live because quarterfinals, semi-finals, the matches are just so clean. It's really promising and exceptional. So we've got semi-finals, Dimitrov over Zverev, 3 sets, and that's what's exceptional because 6-4, 6-7, 6-4. And then on the other half, we've got Sinner and Medvedev. This one was surprising, 6-1, 6-2. Absolutely brutal from Sinner. And Medvedev was playing solid all tournament, which means we know the result. But the finals, and for Dimitrov, 6-3, 6-1 to Sinner. Absolutely brutal. Though on the same account, Sinner's been doing that almost all tournament, like he did to Medvedev. So such a clean scoreline, almost one-sided. It's exceptional. And what this really does, and it runs home, is those 8 keys. The 8th key, the 7 keys, the 8th keys. I think by now you know exactly, I think, where I'm at or what I'm trying to share here is that the 7 keys are by all accounts solidified in both players' game. The 8th key got Sinner over the line. The 8th key amplifies those 7 keys, and that's why we're seeing such clean performances from Sinner. There's no other description. He has been playing so tight-knit. His technical parameters are on song. It is literally a classic to watch. Similarities between Sinner's game, dare I say, and Federer, even though they've got very different game styles, when we're looking at the fluidity, the rate of play, the level of application, when we're looking at, I think, the varying patterns of play, and I think the respective data, the analytics intertwined between the two, very similar approaches, and this is what gets me very excited about Sinner's game, if you cannot tell. Okay, we've got 3 other tournaments that have either been underway or were in action, but all 3 of these have started this week very early on. So we'll start with Texas. I'm over in Houston. We do have the first round that has been underway. Purcell over Michelson, 3 sets. Very big one. Darderi with a win over Kudla with a wild card, 3 sets. Duckworth over Browser, Alahi Garland over Pear, straight sets, and over Varlas, straight sets. My apologies for the mispronunciation. And we also have to round up, I guess, the first round of play. Rinke with his, I think, his ranking progressions of late over Eubanks, 7-6, 7-6. Bergs over Kipson, the qualifier, straight sets. Nakashima over Djokovic, 6-1 and 4. Wolf over Richards, qualifying in 3 sets. Very quickly there, we'll track back to this one in Texas next week to see how these players have been tracking, to look at standout performances, but also any noteworthy results to place potentially on the radar with players with new titles under their name. All right, we've got Morocco currently underway with a couple of noteworthy names here. Good Berrettini, we've got back in action with a win over Shevchenko, first round, 6-2, 6-1. He's still on his protected ranking. Moreno de Alboran over Diaz Acosta, 3 sets. Kaboli over Shalba, 1 and 4. Carabelis Baena over Gigante in straight sets. Fagini, here we go, back in action over Gaston, 6-7, 6-1, 6-4. That is an impressive result. Goffin qualified over Rinderknecht, 4 and 4 in the first round. Nagal, he was inside the top 100, regressed outside, currently fluctuating, I think, almost between the two. We didn't look at the rankings outside the top 100 this week. However, 3 sets over Mute, 4-6, 6-3, 6-2. Very good to see. Let's see him track forwards. Vukic over Muller, a good win for Vukic, 3 and 7-6. Then we've got Wawrinka over Ramos Vinolos, 1 and 4. A couple of other matches to catch up on here is Navone over Douglas, who had the wild card, straight sets. Kotov over Benchite, 5-3, and Muna over Ash in straight sets, I think, to round things up. So that one is Morocco, and we will again track back next week to see the outcomes there. The other match, I think, or tournament underway is a story. So that's in Portugal at the moment. Very early on, so we can only touch on the first round of what has been underway. And so we've only got a couple of matches. We've got Borges over Pauli, 3 sets. Bautista Agut over Kekmanovic, straight sets, and themes in action here. He got a win first round over Martarari, 6-1, 6-7, 6-4. It's very good because I know themes wrist injury has flared up, I believe. I did read about that, so it's really good for him to get that win. It's really, I think, disheartening when especially you have a player inside the top 10 and he does regress because of an injury, and this happens. So Thiem obviously has not found, I think, that form again, but we're really looking at those 7 keys and the 8th key. But I think at Badosa, similar front, even though she did not reach the same level of success as Thiem. She had, I think, 1 season inside the top 10 or partially, whereas Thiem had a number, if not 6-7 seasons inside the top 10. In previous episodes, you've heard me touch on Svitolina, how successful she was inside the top 10, in line, if not ahead of Serena. It was that sensational in all rights when we're looking at the data. Svitolina is an absolute standout. So when we're looking at the ATP Tour, Thiem is one of those players who is an absolute standout. There are others with similar feats, but this is a really, I think, important reminder that Thiem was the one that came up when Federer, Murray, Nadal, Djokovic, even Wawrinka were all up there. Thiem was that newcomer that found his way. Then it was Zverev, and it was really Thiem, Zverev fighting for that name for themselves respectively, and both of them were holding their own in their own right, but Thiem was ranked ahead of Zverev more often than not. Zverev, I believe, did outrank Thiem on some occasions, but Thiem really held his own, and then all of a sudden, unfortunately, after Thiem won that maiden Grand Slam title at the US Open a couple of seasons ago, again, unfortunately, during COVID, when crowds were not permitted, he then regressed. He succumbed to that injury. And I think it's a really important reminder for all those players not in the spotlight, whether they are ranked 100 in the world, 30 in the world, 50 in the world, 200 in the world, and succumb to injuries. It's equally heartbreaking. And I empathize with you wholeheartedly because I've been there. I was one of those players not ranked. I was playing in the NCAA, looking to play on tour in my late teens, and I succumbed to injury after injury over and over again, and it really was over a couple of seasons, and some I still carry to this day, unfortunately. But this really, or that is what underscores a lot of this work, if not all of this work. It's how to develop that top 10 tennis ranking whilst mitigating injuries. So we put these safeguards in place, and that's why this body of work, this new research, this new lease on data, this new form of data and its respective applications, why it's so important for the current to next generation of play to integrate in their game to not only achieve the optimal, that top 10 tennis ranking towards Grand Slam championship wins, what I think every player aspires to accomplish, if not one or the other, both, but it's remaining healthy and keeping, I think, that front and center, that you do not have to compromise your health on the way towards that top 10 tennis ranking. Thank you so much for joining us today. We wrapped that up a little bit quickly because we've gone a little bit over today. There was actually a lot more to get through than I anticipated, but I hope you've had just as much fun as I've had sharing. And especially that I think that final note on injuries, mitigating injuries, how to develop that top 10 tennis ranking, win those Grand Slams, whether it's your first, second, third or more, and the importance of being healthy, tracking towards a top 10 ranking, whether you are ranked 200 in the world, 80 in the world, or your top 10, and really how to safeguard, I think, your body whilst developing those key patterns to parameters of play. Look, to grab your copy of The Secrets to Optimal Coaching Success, the text that we have been focusing on prior, I think, to this change of pace, it's really important, I think, to set the foundations before diving into those later texts. So head on over to AIMA International to grab a copy there. But to grab your copy of my new release, How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, you can also find it on AIMA International, Amazon, irrespective where you're based in the world. But it's really important, I think, to add more light on that, is that all of those texts prior to How to Develop a Top 10 Tennis Ranking, and so that's 10 texts prior, they are prerequisites, because to get the most out of my latest release, you really need to know the foundations. Otherwise, you will find knowledge gaps and you will be inclined to fill them in with those previous texts. Look, for any comments or questions, head to AMA or Topic Thread, the social platform set on data privacy. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, head on over to Twitter, Instagram or YouTube. To catch up on our blogs, head on over to AIMA International and look for our blog tab, or head on over to Medium. And as always, I'll leave all the links in the episode notes. For something different, head on over to Pink Octopus Books. That's where my fictional release is. For something left of field, visit Spruik for some random polls. And of course, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, and all of the above would be absolutely phenomenal. For those of you who are interested, we do have scholarships available on AIMA International, as well as options to work with me exclusively to optimize your performance and to nudge you closer towards that top 10 tennis ranking. So don't be shy, come and say hi. On that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I am your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next time.